A man once planted a tree in the middle of a quiet field. Every day he walked past it. Every day he wondered if it had grown. And because he could not see the growth, he almost cut it down. Most people sell their future for the same reason. They cannot tolerate the silence between planting and harvest. I learned that lesson slowly, painfully. Not from textbooks or market reports, but from watching my own impulses betray me. The greatest mistake I ever made was not buying the wrong stock. It was abandoning the right one too soon. Time is the one partner in investing that never speaks. It never reassures you. It never applauds your patience. It simply waits and quietly multiplies what survives long enough. But human nature hates waiting. Human nature wants proof. And proof, unfortunately, is usually the enemy of great wealth. I discovered early that wealth is not a loud game. It is not played on stages or television panels or dinner tables filled with bragging. It is played in shadows, silently, patiently, almost invisibly. Most people think investing is about intelligence, formulas, information, charts, predictions, but intelligence is common. Discipline is rare. Silence is rarer still. Over the decades, I noticed something curious about the people who kept their fortunes and the many more who lost them. The difference was not brilliance. It was restraint. Restraint in action, restraint in speech, restraint in ego. The world rewards loudness in the short term, loud ideas, loud success, loud predictions. But wealth, the kind that endures across decades, grows best in quiet soil. And that is where the rule that keeps me from selling too early was born. I call it the long shadow rule. A simple idea. Anything truly valuable casts a long shadow in time. But most people judge a tree by the first few inches of growth. They look at a seedling and say, nothing is happening. Then they pull it out of the ground. Human beings are remarkably talented at sabotaging their own patience. Envy accelerates that sabotage. I have seen investors abandon perfectly good businesses simply because someone else made money faster somewhere else. Comparison is a poison that makes slow success feel like failure. You begin to question yourself. You begin to wonder if the quiet path is the wrong one. And that is usually the moment people sell. Not because the business changed, not because the future deteriorated, but because their emotions grew louder than their reasoning. Markets are emotional theaters disguised as financial systems. Every day, people are buying hope and selling fear. The strange thing is that fear often appears exactly when patience is most valuable. Think about forests. A forest does not grow in a straight line. Some years storms rip through it. Some years drought arrives. From a distance, the forest may even look damaged. But underground, roots are expanding. Strength is forming where nobody is watching. Great businesses are the same, and so are great fortunes. The loud investor stares at leaves. The patient investor studies roots. There is another truth I learned that few people talk about. The moment you reveal too much about your success, the world begins quietly rooting for your failure. Not always consciously, but deeply. Human beings carry envy like a shadow behind their pride. If you announce your victories too loudly, you awaken comparisons in the minds of others. Comparisons that slowly turn into resentment. Resentment does strange things. It erodes goodwill. It invites sabotage. It distorts advice. That is why silence became one of the most powerful financial strategies I ever discovered. Not secrecy out of fear, secrecy out of wisdom. Over time, I developed a quiet discipline that governs how I move through wealth. It is not complicated, but it is rarely practiced. The first principle is simple. I never reveal my exact net worth. People assume this is modesty. It is not. It is protection. Numbers have a peculiar psychological effect on people. Once someone attaches a number to your wealth, they begin recalculating their own life against it. Suddenly, conversations change. Expectations appear. Requests multiply. Even friendships begin shifting in subtle ways. The number becomes a mirror that reflects insecurities. And mirrors that expose insecurity rarely remain friendly, so I keep the number to myself. Let people guess. Let them underestimate. Underestimation is a form of armor. I have watched underestimated people move freely through rooms where the obviously wealthy become targets of attention, pressure, and manipulation. Silence preserves optionality. The second discipline emerged from observing how quickly opportunity disappears once it becomes public. I never announce my next move. A hunter does not shout before stepping into the forest. Strategy requires distance between intention and visibility. The moment a plan becomes public, three things happen. Competition appears. Opinions flood in. And your own confidence begins to erode under the weight of other people's certainty. I prefer to move quietly. Decisions grow stronger in solitude. A plan whispered only to yourself is protected from the noise of the crowd. Many investors lose their edge not because the strategy was wrong, but because they exposed it too early. Attention is a tax on focus. The third principle follows naturally from that. I never share my investing edge. Every advantage in markets is fragile. It exists because most people are not looking in the same direction. The moment an edge becomes popular, it disappears. I once watched a small investment idea spread through a group of intelligent people. Within months, the opportunity had been arbitraged away. Nothing had changed about the business itself. Only the awareness. Information is leverage, but leverage only works when it remains rare. The quietest investor in the room is often the one holding the strongest hand. The fourth principle is more personal. I never poison my children with guaranteed inheritance. That sentence surprises people. But I have seen what easy money does to young minds. It dulls ambition. It replaces curiosity with entitlement. A forest grows stronger when trees fight for sunlight. Remove that struggle and growth weakens. Wealth should be a safety net, not a hammock. If my children inherit anything valuable from me, it should be judgment, discipline, and humility. Money without those qualities is not a gift. It is gravity. It pulls character downward. The final discipline may be the most misunderstood. I never broadcast charity, success, or personal pain. Not because those things lack meaning, but because meaning changes when it becomes performance. Charity loses purity when it seeks applause. Success loses stability when it seeks validation. And pain loses dignity when it seeks attention. The quietest acts are often the most sincere. I have seen people donate fortunes anonymously and sleep peacefully. I have also seen people donate modest sums publicly and spend years chasing the approval that followed. Approval is addictive, and addiction rarely builds strong investors. Attention trains the mind to chase applause rather than results. Once that happens, patience becomes almost impossible. You begin making decisions not because they are correct, but because they look impressive. And impressive decisions often mature poorly. All of these disciplines connect back to the same rule that keeps me from selling too early. Silence protects patience. Patience protects compounding. Compounding protects wealth. Most investors do not fail because they lack intelligence. They fail because they expose themselves to too much noise. Noise from markets, noise from friends, noise from their own ego. Noise creates urgency. Urgency creates mistakes. When you remove noise, something interesting happens. Time begins to feel slower. Decisions become clearer, and opportunities start appearing where panic once lived. There were many moments in my life when the temptation to sell early was overwhelming. A stock doubles and people celebrate. It triples and they call you brilliant. Then it falls 20% and suddenly everyone wonders if the story is over. Praise turns into doubt with astonishing speed. If you listen to that noise long enough, you will eventually surrender to it. But businesses do not grow according to public opinion. They grow according to economics, management, and time. And time rarely moves in straight lines. Some of my best investments looked disappointing for years, not weeks, years. Imagine holding something for 5 years while people around you chase faster gains elsewhere. Imagine watching markets celebrate companies you never believed in while your quiet investment barely moves. That is where most investors quit. They cannot tolerate the loneliness of long-term conviction. Loneliness is the hidden price of great compounding. But the forest does not grow faster because someone shouts at it. Roots deepen in silence. Seasons pass, storms arrive and leave, and eventually what looked like slow growth becomes undeniable strength. The long shadow rule reminds me of this constantly. If the business is sound, if the people running it are rational, if the economics remain intact, then time is an ally. Selling early is often just impatience wearing the disguise of prudence. Patience, however, is uncomfortable. It requires ignoring the constant drama of markets. It requires trusting quiet evidence over loud opinions. And perhaps most importantly, it requires being comfortable being underestimated. Underestimation is a strange advantage. When people expect little from you, they stop watching closely. They stop interfering. They stop competing so aggressively. This creates space. Space to think, space to wait, space to act when the moment is right. Predators in nature do not chase every movement in the forest. They wait, still, invisible. Energy preserved for the one opportunity that matters. Investing rewards the same behavior. You do not need 1,000 great decisions. You need a few. But those few must be given time to mature. That is why the rule remains simple in my mind. If the tree is healthy, do not cut it down, because it has not yet reached the sky. Let it grow. Let storms pass. Let seasons do their quiet work. Compounding is invisible in the beginning, then subtle, then suddenly obvious. And by the time it becomes obvious, most people wish they had stayed longer. I have seen fortunes evaporate because someone wanted confirmation today rather than wealth tomorrow. I have also seen modest investments become extraordinary simply because they were left alone long enough. The difference between those outcomes was rarely intelligence. It was restraint. So I protect my patience with silence. I protect my strategy with secrecy. I protect my judgment from applause. And I protect my future from the impulse to harvest too soon. Because the loud world always demands proof. But the quiet investor understands something else. The strongest trees grow where nobody is measuring them, and the greatest fortunes are built by those who can sit in the shade of uncertainty and remain perfectly still.